very good evening to you, and thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Spectrum, coming to you live on Radio 1 FM 90. We're broadcasting from the Central Building here in the heart of our city, Kampala, live on our website, www.radio1fm90.com. On that website, you look for the icon with the word listen live, click on it, and you'll be listening to Radio 1 FM 90 from wherever you are. We're also coming to you live on the different radio listening apps. Those apps you can obtain from the App Store of your smartphone. You download any, look for Radio 1 FM 90, and as long as you have an internet connection, you should be able to listen to us from anywhere across this globe. Radio 1 is also live on DSTV, where our audio channel is 897. My name is Kenneth Anderson Lukwago, your host, and we do encourage you to share with us during the course of this discussion. Use the WhatsApp line 0703 090 090. Next year, in a few months to come, this country will be going into an election process. But as many experts will tell you, the election process doesn't start with casting the ballot. It takes so many things to happen. It includes budgeting for the election process. It includes some people using colossal sums of money as they finance their campaigns, but it also includes planning to ensure that the ballot is actually cast. Now, there are people who are more concerned about what will affect the economy, and they say in the past, when certain huge amounts of money were sunk in the economy, certain things happened. And they're wondering whether this time things will happen in the same way. There are concerns about political parties and how they intend to treat the economy. Is it a campaign issue? Is there anyone focusing on the economy as a campaign issue? And if they are they giving out the right messages? What kind of messages should a winning candidate be providing looking at the state of the Ugandan economy today? Now, there's no better person other than the one I have in studio today to speak about this particular subject, the economy and the election process. Dr. Fred Muhumuza, Senior Economist and Director, Economic Forum, Makerere University Business School. Good evening, Dr. Muhumuza. It's a pleasure having you on Spectrum this evening.
Good evening. It's a pleasure indeed, and to have this kind of conversation that is really heating up and is going to dominate the next 6 months and possibly beyond.
And when I invited you for this particular discussion, when I made a call and I said our topic of discussion will be the economy and the election process, I remember you telling me it's a good one. I wonder, why would you describe this kind of discussion as a good one?
I think it's the big bull in the corral as of now. We have Chan going out there, but already even as Chan is going on, we can't miss the fact that the NRM tribunal process is out there. People spent colossal sums of money, and there are all sorts of interesting conversations ongoing, because in some places, once you get the NRM flag, you're done. So some people, for them, the election of January was in this race or is still in this race. So that's a big conversation, but also big money is moved out there based on the social media information we received. And it's going to heat up. End of this month, we have the big NRM delegates conference. It's going to happen. Everybody will be looking at that. I was looking at the chart. Already people are lining up for the different positions in that party, which is a big party. We're also getting information from the other parties. I was hearing a part of my friend, Ned Kableta, is people throwing him out, saying, hey, we don't know where you put the money. So already the money is moving around and changing alliances. And quite a lot moves on. So while we have Chan out there and in here, so bad that we didn't do well last night, we are hoping we'll do better and go on. I wouldn't blame the team that much. Algeria is really a good team, one of the contenders even to carry the trophy. It was a bad start for us. But these are the big things. Elections usually in Uganda have a history. The highest inflation we have received in possibly the last 30 months was 2011-12 after that election. That's why everybody will still associate inflation with elections or elections with inflation. That memory is out there. But at least we have had two other cases. 2016 and 2021, we didn't get that inflation come through. So it may look like the central bank knew what to do at around that time. And we know what the mistakes were the other time. The late Mutevile said, never again. This will not happen again. And indeed, we haven't seen it. But it's not here with us, so who knows what will happen. But there are some things that you already begin to see. We have talked here before about what we call counter-cyclical policies. If you really have elections coming, they come with big budgets. certain things must wait. And they want to wait officially. Now, if you don't and you still think you'll fund your roads program the way you were funding it outside the election year, knowing the election year is going to take away money, and it's a legal thing, it's an urgent thing, it heats up everything, it disrupts everything, you are going to end up with kudos to General Katumba Wamala for being a very sincere man, saying, people, these roads on hold, this one slow progress. Other people would have kept quiet, and we just see the roads are bad. But we have been warned, I don't have the money. Now, we could have done it in the budgeting period to say this year there is elections, we need $1 trillion, because it doesn't just go to electoral commission. There's the entire police network and security network and printing of ballots, and citizens getting disrupted. So there's a lot that comes up in that space. So for me, this is a big thing. That's why we said we can't just ignore it. It's going to persist with us up to January. There will be appeals, court processes will be busy. So we'll have to find more money for the courts, because these are legally bound processes that the courts must dispense of. So some cases will be put on hold, but judges have to work that fast. That's additional money. And then until you get the new government, because some people eventually settle down and say, okay, fine, I've lost it. Maybe the president will elect me in a cabinet or put me in a cabinet, which comes in May. So we are going to be in this kind of discussion for quite some time. That's why I call it a big thing. Others may come, Chan will come and go, AFCON will come and go, but this is our thing and has been here before and disrupted our conversations.
All right. Now, I'll treat that as your opening remarks to this discussion, and I want to dig deeper on some of the issues that you've put across. First of all, you defined the 2011 election,
yeah.
2011 elections, and you characterized it with inflation, and also talked about how the then Governor Mutebile said never to happen again. Let's just refresh the minds of Ugandans. What exactly happened then that Mutebile talked about, saying it should never happen again?
Well, according to the information we got, he kept receiving requests for money in phases. You know, the governor would want to regulate what amount of money is in circulation, especially for such spikes. If it is a normal release, you are paying salaries, trillions will go in there. That is regular. We know it goes on, but also it's distributed along the whole year. So we had a big spike there that went into election processes, being requested for by this entity and this other entity. The Electoral Commission itself had its own. Security agencies would come in and say, this is, we need to deploy. And you don't ask security people, theirs is classified. You don't ask, where are you going to deploy, how many, why, which. If they tell you we need some 200 billion, you have to look for it. Now, that disrupts the processes. So eventually we ended up with a lot of money. People had money in their own places. I remember around that time people used to talk of fumigation of cash that people had in their ceilings. I never got to see that, but of course, as an economist, you look at the spike and say, what has changed this year? What has changed in this season? Inflation went all the way up to 29%, something we hadn't seen in decades. Now, part of that effect is still with us because interest rates moved up to try and contain that inflation. Now, some of us were not happy with the speed at which the interest rates were being raised to deal with the one-off. Because if you are going to raise interest rates, central bank rate, the CBR, and then the bonds, because you want to mop out, what they call mopping out. Let people buy bonds and give us money. And then they are going to lock you up at 19% for 20 years. So some of the people who locked government at 19% that time are still earning their money. Because I buy a bond of 15 years in 2012. It's going to run until 2027. So you are still paying me 19% for an event that completely ended. But so those effects and ripple effects are still with us. But that was 1 year we saw a lot of money going into election out there. I'm not so worried about individuals. An individual can spend 2 billion, can spend 3 billion, but what is a 2 billion in an economy of 225 trillion? That will not be a big scare. The thing you really want to get concerned about is if some entity, the NRM, we don't know how much they will spend. They are the ones I think who would have a lot of money, followed by NOP. But you'll be watching the NRM, they will be the ones to spend the biggest, and they are going to begin at the end of this month when they have that conference. And then out their candidates will go. The NRM has capacity to give some support to their individual members. Even if each one is given $1 billion, they might be competing out there about 400 people. That can be a lot of money in some places, but the other negative part is what are we losing, what economists call the opportunity cost of this election. I think that is going to be something to persist with us.
All right. Later on, I will want you to tell us whether you're concerned about where this money actually comes from, because like you said, the NRM will be spending, almost everybody, NOP and the other political parties will be spending. It would be interesting to know, you as economists, whether you're concerned about that. But you talked about the opportunity cost lost and the fact that some projects will actually have to wait.
Yes.
What does that imply? Is it a problem of budgeting? Is it scarcity of resources? What exactly is the problem? Why should projects such as roads, stop just because there's an election?
I think quite a number of things, really. It is sad that projects have to stop. Now, that also goes back to how did we plan? And many times we see elections come and receive supplementaries. But we're like, why? We knew the election was coming. So some of these things you have to budget and provide for them. And in some cases, the Electoral Commission also has to preserve some money. Because remember, some of the people who sue after losing, they sue both the candidate and the Electoral Commission. So the Electoral Commission also has to hire lawyers of its own. Now, all those systems are going to be triggered out there. Now, you begin to prioritize those, as we have said, because there is a constitutional limitation that the courts of law must come back to report on some of these processes. The Electoral Commission must come back. The deployments must come back. The people going to check on the registers, that whole network is an expensive process. Now, you can plan for it. The point is, you say which projects can wait. Maybe you don't want to embark on a new road project. But remember, the election year, people are going to be promised roads. Or they have already been promised roads in this budget, which we know.
And they're even demanding for what was promised.
They will be demanding for what was demanded, they promised before. So this is a year where you really want to talk with the politics and tell people, your road is going to come, but it's starting 26, 27. Because in 25, 26, I have an election. This election is going to cost us over $1 trillion as government. So when you have that, you don't want to start on any project. You prioritize the existing projects. I saw the list of the projects where they are saying, these ones we are going to go slow, these ones we are not going to move. Now, one sad road, and I passed through there coming from Fort Porto, is in Mitiana to Mubende segment. And even beyond Chiegegwa to Kienjojo is a very bad road. Now, the problem is when you stop a road, you run two risks. The groundwork you had done can only be protected if you complete that section and put a seal, tarmac on top. If you don't put tarmac, the water is going to go underneath and eat your effort. So you may be forced to redo what you had done. And I've been on that road before 2 years ago. I found sections that were being worked on 2 years ago. They have not been sealed yet. Now, even if you got the money to seal, the engineers might tell you it has already been compromised. So you want to prioritize those. Now, while you are prioritizing those, I saw an increment of salaries for commissioners. Happy people were not happy that a commissioner in government was getting less than 2 billion, around 2 million. Now, is this the time you want to increase them to 12.7 million? Don't you want to wait and say, well, from 2 to 12.7 is too big a jump? I hear you guys, you've been waiting. Can you wait another 1 year? But for now, I'm going to give you half increment. Now, that's the budgeting and planning you want to do so that you don't stifle the election year, which has mandatory things, but they are going to be washed out. They will be done within 1 year, and then you can revert to your normal routine. But remember, don't forget our 72 trillion budget. Almost half of it is debt management. You are either rolling over, debt refinancing, or you are paying interest. So the little money you're talking about, which we call where you have freedom to spend, because the other is statutory. We're going to have like 8 million, which is 8 trillion, which is going to be salaries. Now that has gone up. The primary teachers, the non-science teachers are also coming up on your desk. We are still in a volatile region. The other day, the ADF resurrected and killed people in the Congo. You don't want to have those deaths here. So you still have a security budget. Balancing out all these things in an election year requires a lot of tough talking and tough decision making, where you look a minister in the face and the PS in the face and say, who can tell those people that that road will be done in 2027, not in 2025?
All right. And you raised a very important issue there, but sort of link it up to my next set of questions. And I wanted to actually ask you how this budget is likely to perform now that we are in an election year. Should we have hope we had targets. This is the financial year that kickstarts the tenfold growth strategy, including the ATMs, and the funds must be directed to there. To those particular areas to be able to kickstart that agenda to grow the economy to a 500 billion size by the turn of the century, the turn of a decade, so to say. So where does this put it in terms of budget performance?
I think it's going to be a difficult situation. I have people mentioning they haven't been paid their salaries. Here it's a computer glitch or something, but this is the 5th of August. Usually most of these civil servants are paid 5 days before the end of the month. Now it is 5 days after the end of the month.
And the funds were released the other day.
That is usually a warrant. It's not cash as such. There is a difference between a promise to give you the money and when you actually get the money. So you still have those. Now, whatever the reason is, when you pay government salaries to everybody who should get them, there is some revival it brings in the economy. Liquidity in the banks, which gave salary-based loans, they are also able to deduct and receive their payback from the people who took the loans. But also these people go and spend. You are in the middle of the school term when children, candidate classes are going to do mocks. Now some of these people had negotiated with the head teachers. By August I will be paying so that my child can do mocks. Now there is tension emerging out there. So the government budget triggers a lot of other activities, but also gives a sense of confidence. Now, if you already have roads stalling, and really, as I've said, General Katumba Amara is one of those staff generals who will come and give you the facts because you have asked for them. I want to imagine every minister and every PS would also come to give their side of the story, whether it is the facilities in the health sector, whether it is the facilities in the education sector. You want to look at a reconfiguring of the budget. We want to say, these roads, we need to prioritize them, especially the ones we are already working on. Kampala has been really like a workshop for the last 3 years, but we are still seeing slow progress and traction on some of these roads. You want to clear it up so that it's done and we move on. All these other situations. So for me, the emerging developments, and we are still here discussing internal Ugandan issues. The global economy is also not treating us well. I'm trying to look at the numbers of imports, because imports speak to taxation. If imports are originating from China, from India, you can tax them. They are outside the East African region. Now, if the Chinese become smart and come and set up factories in China and in Tanzania, because I'm seeing a lot of imports coming from Tanzania, and I'm watching it is food, but also some other products. You want to say, is this not going to affect my tax revenues? Because the budget is that revenue as well. You also have another complication that the strong shilling undermines revenue collection. Because remember, you bring a phone here, and we'll say, well, your phone is $400. The tax you have to pay $80. Now, the $80 will convert it on the exchange rate. If the exchange rate is 3.7, so it's 80 times 3,700. If it is 3.5, it's going to be 80 times 3,500. We've lost some revenue. So you want to look at that and say, is the strong shilling beginning to affect revenues that we are going to get? Now, if this is the trend, then the projection of the 37 trillion coming from URA might affect us. But also remember, where is the demand? People are bringing funds. So you want to keep tracking all these kinds of things and say, where am I? So the budget people need not to say, this is the budget that was read on the 12th of June. This is the budget that was appropriated on this date in April, in May. What has changed? That's why we still call them budget estimates, because anything changes. So you need to really be agile to say, in the event this comes through, then I'll do this. We these days call it scenario-based planning. It is rare to find them homes on a one-way road. I'm like, what if I find a truck is out there and there are already 7 vehicles behind me? You're trapped. I'd rather be on a two-way so that I can negotiate with the people, reverse, and try to go back and find my other way. So you want those options in the budget process.
Well, Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90. My guest this evening is senior economist Dr. Fred Muhumuza, and we are looking at the economy and the election process. We'll be going through an election process. And of course, he has raised a number of issues, including concerns, that warning that if we misbehave like we did in the 2011 election process, we are likely to be hit by inflation, which actually led to the walk-to-work protests, if I remember Dr. Fred Muhumuza. Now, let's move on a little bit and look at the source of the funds that you're talking about. You said political parties and individuals will be spending billions and billions during this election process. As economists, are you concerned about the source of this money? And what does this mean for the economy?
Well, it's a very tricky one. As long as the money is not illegal, which may cause us global sanctions and downgrade us back into a gray area, because you don't want illicit financial flows coming through. The world hates those. So if people are going to source their money legally and they are coming to spend it on a defined purpose, it's elections, that on the outer scale of things shouldn't be a problem. As long as you want now again to watch from the central bank point of view, I should be ready to keep monitoring the money flowing around so that it doesn't trigger the other inflation. So can I see which money is coming in, or when it comes in, I want to see how it has percolated through the economy.
What's the purpose of the money?
The purpose of the money, which channels is it taking? Now, of course, you would have elections in Uganda rarely and global, world over. The money is following formality, even when it is formal.
I was about to ask you whether we have a tight mechanism to actually monitor all the money that comes in.
You certainly don't have that because of the technological advancement that we've got. You might even get to see money has flown on people's mobile phones. 100 billion today. Now, are you going to chase these fellows? You know this phone received, but as we receive, we disperse it. Especially if it is election thing. I receive it, I send it to my agent. I may not even withdraw. Because in some of these cases, you're going to go to a village where somebody needs to withdraw $1 million, and this agent has never transacted more than 100,000. So quite often, it is going to move again on mobile money systems, which is sometimes a good thing for us, because we are able to track, we are able to monitor, not tracking for evil intentions, but as you are able to know where is the money going and how has it moved and what is it doing. So some of these monies will go out there and be spent in the election processes themselves. You can imagine how many polling stations we have. Every candidate is supposed to have an agent. So you get into a constituency with 7 MPs. Each one will have an agent on every polling station, and they have to finance them. So if the money is going into those processes, as I've said, you can watch, and that's an expected thing. Government itself would be spending money to deploy a police officer in these hotspots. But even where there are no hotspots, at least you want to have rapid response. To say in the event you hear chaos, police should be able to go there. That is fuel, that is deployment, that's allowances, that's numbers that will need to get out there. The old criminal work also continues. So you have to beef up the police. So these are some of the things, if they are the drivers of the monies on the side of government and on the side of individuals, that I expect it to come through.
All right. Dr. Mumza, not so long ago, during the State of the Nation address, President Yoweri Museveni was concerned about what he called political corruption, and was saying, where are you getting this money that is moving around? Were you able, as economists, to make sense of his statement?
Of course we had them. What we didn't have is the privilege that the president had. Because if he says this money, where is it moving, where is it going, he has a brief, a detailed intelligence brief. Now I wouldn't know what money he was talking about, where was it going, but as I've said, we intertwined with the global systems. Ugandans abroad are going to send money to their candidates here, so that money will come through. Now you want to monitor that it may not be used for evil purposes, other people taking advantage. But I imagine there will be monies coming from out there and people will be watching. Now, you want to wonder if Muhumuza's phone receives 6 million today, 6 million tomorrow, 6 million the other day. Who is this guy? If I'm a campaign and a candidate, you will say, yeah, people are giving me some money to deal with my campaign. But now you don't want to block that because some other person who may be receiving money may be bereaved or they have a patient. So the relatives of this person who went to Dubai, who are in the US, are sending money to support a sick person. So you really want a lot of good intelligence to say, should I interfere with this process? Because for me, as I've said, money is money. As long as it comes in this economy legally, it is going to leave an impact. As they always say, water will wet the place. Whether that water was dirty, whether that water was smelling, the soil is going to remain wet. And if there is something to grow there, we'll grow it if this is not a poisonous kind of water source that we are using. So the money will come in. You want on the outer line to say, what is it going to do? Is it not going to find criminality? For inflation, I want to believe the central bank will be able to manage that. The team out there, I want to trust they will manage that bit of it.
All right, Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90. Let's go for a break now. When we return, we'll look at the state of the economy and whether political parties in Uganda actually take matters economy seriously. Is it going to be a campaign issue? And if it is, what are some of the key issues that the political parties or those in power must look out for? Stay tuned to Radio 1 FM 90, but keep your comments coming via the WhatsApp line 0703 090 090. Dr. Fred Muhumuza, my guest this evening, will be handy to respond to this question.
Better living. Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Well, we're glad that you're still with us on Spectrum, live on Radio 1 FM 90, as we reflect on the state of the Ugandan economy, but also looking at how the upcoming elections are likely to affect the economy. My guest this evening is renowned economist, Dr. Fred Muhumuza, who is also the Director Economic Forum at Makerere University Business School, where he's also a senior lecturer. Please do join us in this discussion by sharing with us via the WhatsApp line 0703 090 090. It could be a question or comment. Dr. Fred Muhumuza will be responding to you. Now, Dr. Muhumuza, let's touch the aspect of a state of the economy and whether the political parties or our political leaders take this issue seriously, and also try to understand if someone is serious about the Ugandan economy, what kind of messages, what kind of issues, what kind of burning issues should they be paying attention to?
I think the economy is about the people, and we've tried to emphasize this because quite often economists will tell stories of macro figures and big figures. You read a report and they will tell you we have now increased our kilometers of roads to 6,000 that are tarmacked. And I like it now that the trend that the President Museveni has taken, and I pray that, as we've said, are the political parties and processes speaking to the economy. It's not just be speaking to the economy to say now the GDP is 53 trillion or 60 billion dollars from 1.5 in 1986. But what impact is it doing to the population? Are people benefiting from these processes? So it was music to my ears to hear that the President in his tours is now really re-emphasizing the wealth creation process and not just the enhancers or enablers of the wealth creation process. Because it's easy to say there is a tarmac road. We have put a valley dam. We have put, electric pylons, and now we've transmitted electricity. How is it helping people to do the wealth creation process? And not just the wealth creation, you also want to say, what are people doing with the money they are getting? Is that money enough? If you still have an average male Ugandan earning 250,000, this is a household head. So it's not that 250,000 is going to Muhumuza. It's going to Muhumuza and his dependents, because half of the population or more is actually dependent population. So they are not going to work. They are going to depend on the 250,000 that I've received. Now, I have to get food, I have to get rent if I'm in an urban setting, I have to get transport to go and work, because part of that money goes back into the work itself to invest, because I must come and work and go back using the same salary. So you reach a level where there are many Ugandans really surviving by the skin of their teeth. So you don't say the economy has grown by 6% or 10% or 8%. You want to look at this person's life. Today I was looking at the data on unemployment, and forgive the definition of unemployment and employment in Uganda. It is very sad, because they are saying we define somebody as employed if in the last 1 week before the interview, this person had at least 1 hour or 1 day of gainful employment. So if my vehicle stalls on the roadside and I ask somebody to help me keep it as I go to find a mechanic, and I pay that person something, or you have a function for a day or two, and you have somebody who has come to help, it's a wedding, guard people's cars. Now you come to interview within a week and you ask this guy, what did you do in the last 1 week? Oh, there was an event where they paid me 20K because we were guarding cars at a funeral or at a wedding. You think that person is employed. And remember, we do this service every 3 years and sometimes more. So for the next 3 years, you're going to imagine that person is employed. which is already a wrong distortion in the statistics. So when you hear unemployment numbers of 11% unemployment or 9% unemployment, the definition is really not the one speaking to the realities on the ground. That's the distortion number one. But then I was able to see that for the population between 15, and these are surveys that we did, as I said, surveys take some time before they are done. You will find that 40% of the population between 15 and 24 were in employment spaces that were called vulnerable. And remember, in COVID, Museveni talked about the vulnerable and the non-vulnerable economy. So these are fellows who cannot rely on this job for 1 month after another. Now the situation rises to 50% when you're talking of the population bracket of 18 to 30%, to 30 years. Now these are youth with responsibilities. Some of them have families they are starting. Even if they don't have families, these are people who now will come to you and say, you finished school, you're now 27, why are you asking me for 10K? But he has responsibilities, and even when you come to a meeting, you're not bringing ideas to say, oh, me, I'll be there to split firewood at the funeral. They expect you to put money on the table. Now, that bracket of 18 to 30 years, which is real an anchor and the key drive of economic growth and demand, 50% of them are in vulnerable employment. Now, is that economy speaking to those realities? So you don't want to interpret the economy and say it has increased by 6%. You want to say it is not solving the problem. If a man is still at 250,000 a month, lower for the women, 150,000, you are not talking of an economy that will support industrialization.
Last week I was speaking to a young man whose family actually lost somebody in the village, and the story you were talking about responsibilities, and he told me that he had gotten a call from the village, and they had told him that most of the things had been solved. Ebisinga obungi biwedde wabulayo sente zokka.
So what did they solve?
You ask yourself, what did they solve? That's exactly what he was talking about.
Exactly.
He was struggling to raise money to take care of that particular funeral, right?
Yes.
But also so many other dependents were looking up to him.
And those are things we say most Ugandans are just one shock away from disaster.
Some people say one check away.
Because we're trying to increase savings. And there are two things about savings. Savings must be sustained. If you're going to save for 1 year, then such a shock comes and wipes out all your savings. So over time, you'll find you have not saved anything. But you're not bad off, because whatever you had saved solved that problem. A sick person did not die, or a dead person was given a decent burial. But that's not what life is about. That I fall sick and recover, and then the money is all finished. We start again. You don't want to be not making progress when eventually you can invest your money. Now, the other challenge for Uganda is we are saying our savings rate must increase. Now, economists are very clear. Savings must equal to investment. So it's not just about savings. Where is the money going? Now, if the bulk of the savings, and I have seen a lot of savings, going into government bonds, now you want to follow. When the government borrows and issues a bond of 20 years at 17% and receives 1 trillion, 1.5 trillion out of this issue, what is government doing with that money? If I can't see it with General Katumbo Amara doing roads, I can't find it in Mulago with my friend Diana and Dr. Cheng treating people so that they don't deplete their own savings. If I can't find it in education, building capacity and capital for other people, if I can't find it supporting farmers with extension services, then that's not an investment. If it is with a government official flying abroad and then driving big cars, chasing us off the road, because now you're not only buying a 600 million vehicle for the minister or some other government official, you're also buying a lead car and another one maybe to trail him and secure that person. That kind of cost should not be coming out of borrowing by government that is depleting national savings. So that for me is a crisis that we need to address, the government saving, and it requires structural adjustment, downsizing government. I would not have increased the salaries of anybody before you restructure to reduce the numbers, because if you just increase the salary, then the budget will not be manageable. The other part is savings must match. The long-term investments need to match long-term savings. Now, the long-term savings we have in Uganda today, largely in pension sector and maybe insurance. And you're talking about NSSF, the big ball. NSSF is really long-term savings. If 75% of NSSF savings are with government bonds, you want to say, what is government doing? Is it paying salaries? Is it refurbishing houses? Is it renting?
Is it servicing loans?
You have now changed long-term savings, which are the anchor of development, into short-term expenditure. That economy is headed for trouble.
All right. So now, if you're vying for office now, what kind of issues would you take seriously on the side of economy?
I would want every politician to speak not just on budgets, but how are the budgets converting things that people can touch and feel and benefit from. The young man you talked about, he said everything is ready except the money.
The money.
Meaning these guys had done the planning. When money comes, we buy a coffin, we buy food, we buy tents, we do this. So the money is not just coming and we're looking at 2 million has come or 3 million has come. When it comes, you are like, okay, the coffin you can tick, the food you can tick, this one you can tick. Now, anybody should be saying, how do I tick the box of capitation of 20,000 a year? Because that's not going to give us the quality of education that we need. How do I tick the box of, fine, people have received the coffee and they have, but are they making progress? Have we supported them 60 degrees, as people say? Because you don't want to earn your money, you receive it in pillar 3 of the PDM, you put it in pillar 1, do production and agro-processing, you lose it in pillar 4, which is health care, which is not working. So all the goats you had raised over the last 2 years, and PDM is now saying, can you pay back our money? Somebody falls sick, you sell all the goats to treat that person. So we invested in pillar 4 to make sure the money people are picking up. Because wealth creation is a sustained process. You plow back some money, you eat off some, but you need to sustain that. A shock that washes away the bridge of this individual is going to send the individual back into the dungeon. So you want politicians to be speaking to that. Don't tell me we're going to give you power lines. So what? There's not even maize to process in some of these countries. We've looked at the Community Agricultural Infrastructure Improvement Project, CAIP. This is money we borrowed. These are coolers, maize hullers, rice hullers, coffee hullers. They are all dangling across the whole country. There's no coffee to deal with. There's no maize to hull. There's no rice to hull. There's no milk to cool. But that's an investment and is in there and dead. Now, how do I make these come to life? I want to hear politicians speaking, not just the politics of the day. I know by March, the losers will have lost, the winners will have won. So they may not even speak to what the communities should be in 2029. It doesn't make sense. So they are going to rush in here. But it's okay to say, well, this child is going to be a doctor. But for now, we are in P7. Can we first pass social studies? But we haven't lost sight. So I want a politician who speaks and says, this is where we are going. This is how we are going to go there. But for 2025, 2026, let's focus like this, so that in 2027, this is my plan. In 2028, this is my plan. And then you can see that whole journey. I like the theme of the NRM manifesto. A lot of things have happened, securing the future. Now, that was 2021. We are now in 2026. That future is with us. Is it secure? What went wrong? So whoever is going to be involved in writing that manifesto, and the others can draw, because each one of them had their own manifesto. How do we make sure that our manifesto is speaking to the entire trajectory of those 5 years? Stop telling people what is exciting. Baganda say bugu simuliro. It may be a big fire, but it's not going to cook our food if it is just a fire. So I want to hear those messages of concrete proposals on how you're going to build the economy that speaks to people's needs. Not just we are going to do another rocket in space, Ugandans will be doing these kinds of things. And you see that people without shoes. Why are you putting a rocket in space? I don't want to talk about some of these really projects out there. Some exciting things, but not for us. And I liked Museveni's opening remark in his keynote in the National Development Plan 4. Kamugwe Muganda, one by one you make a bundle. So if we're about to talk about the bundle, talk about the one stick, the next stick, the next stick. And so I'm saying, can I see those stick collections over the next 5 years from each of the parties in their manifesto? Like we've said, tenfold growth. What are we going to be doing in 2029? What are we going to be doing in 2031? You should be looking at that trajectory so that you begin with this child pass social studies. Then when you go to O level, make sure you pass biology. If you have to go to medical school, because biology and chemistry are key there. Don't pass your history and literature and get your A's, and then you focus on where you want to go. Keep your eyes on the goal. I think that's why we lost yesterday in Cranes.
All right. Now, Dr. Mumza, you raise a very important issues on why political parties should actually focus on those issues. But when you speak to some of these politicians, they actually tell you those are not the things that Ugandans actually want to listen to. Do you think Ugandans care about issues like the economy? Can they actually make it an issue to vote for someone or vote somebody out? Do they really care when you speak to ordinary Ugandans?
It's also an absurd part that Ugandans have been reduced to Meriyalero. They are short term in their thinking. They are not looking at the long term. But that's where and I wouldn't put that blame on the common person. As I've said, a child in primary is focusing on passing PLOE. But the father, the mother who wants this child to get out there and become a professional is already looking beyond. That's why I'll be saying, where should my child go when they pass senior one? And that's the whole position of leadership. The leader should not speak and think like the led. The led have a right to simply look at what we have today. We are going to Guru. Everybody will be saying, how do we go through the jam in Kawempe? But this driver is already bothered about Nakasongola, about Bweyale, and all the way up to Guru. He has put in enough fuel. You people may not even know which fuel is in there, what the guy has in his mind. So a leader should be thinking beyond the community. But don't downgrade your leadership role to think like the villagers. And I think that's why we've gotten it wrong. So somebody gets a bar of soap, goes and votes. We saw these videos in the NRM primaries. Somebody is literally on a line handing out 2,000. Every time you take this line, you have your 2,000. Is this election about 2,000 shillings? Shouldn't you be speaking to these people so that they vote you because you promised to convert this primary school, which has not received the first grade in the last 7 years? What is your plan about it? Because their children are not going to come to Buganda Road or Nakasero. They are going to remain in this Chamuzuguzi primary school, and those are your voters. So what plans do you have for that school?
All right.
I have information from Northern Uganda, which is really annoying. There is a good school which has 22 children, and it's an ordinary level school, secondary school, 22 children, 7 teachers. Is that hope? And has an MP. There is a cow in that place. There's a district chairman. There are councillors in that place. A whole school of O level has less than 30 children. And we are sending capitation per child. An MP should be speaking to those realities in their areas.
All right, Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90. It's that time when we look at the views of the listener through our WhatsApp line 0703 090 090. Very quickly, good evening, Spectrum. The NRM should forget about the shame and restore the cooperatives, including the cooperative bank. That is the only thing the citizens can become more active. Fix better prices for the agriculture products. Otherwise, our economy will remain growing in media only. That is Mawa Amaza Moyo. Kenneth, we can't say our economy is growing when the majority of the farmers don't have any kind of cash crops in their gardens, e.g. Moyo, Yumbe, and Ajuman, where I traveled frequently, people are badly off. Then we have another comment here. Based on the nation where election seasons are all taken by men in uniform, disrupting calm campaigns, gatherings, and political aspirants, keeping bags of money for voter bribing, making money scarcity high, making government waste, forgetting on crucial sector of the economy, concentrating on elections. That is the situation in Uganda. If the economy crashes, what happens to bond holders? That's another question that comes in from Pat. Let's first respond to those, Dr. Fred Mumza.
I think the fellow in Yombe really raises an important part of do we have a cash crop? Growing up, there were those crops. This is food crop for your own food security. This is cash crop. Now, in the 90s, we brought in what we call the non-traditional export crops, where you begin to grow maize for cash, fish for cash, beans for cash. And it picked up and diversified, and sort of the very big problem of overexposure to one cash crop, which was coffee at the time, tobacco for some families who didn't have those options of the coffee, tobacco, and tea, in their areas, they also began to look at some cash crops.
Mm.
But we have reached a level where households are so vulnerable in terms of food. When I see the quantities of food coming in from Tanzania, the other day was a manufacturer who was really complaining he's processing maize. His complaint was not that I can't get maize from Kamwenge or Chigomba. He said, no, Zambia has put a ban on the export of maize. So I'm like, wait a minute. In Uganda, we can't even find maize to process. So that concern is a very genuine concern that you want to say when you walk into the community, what are they eating, what are they selling? Because they must sell something to buy that which they cannot produce in their own level, which is why we are fighting subsistence survivors. Where can this person get money to buy those other things? It is through their own production. But also it talks about the infrastructure. I can't forget my story when I was watching from West Nile and I decided to use a ferry in the night, and the ferry hadn't worked for a whole week. I had to run to Laropi. I ended up reaching Kampala at 3 a.m. That's not the way to do business. So it's not just the people in Yumba around, but you also want to say when they do produce, how do we evacuate their produce so that they can get a good price, but also how do we take in the other thing that they need? So that integrated approach to development is going to be very key for us.
All right. There are so many other comments that came in. If you can also tackle them.
I think there was the bondholder. It's a risk out there. Government continuing to borrow and increasing. We must now be over 35 trillion of either government bonds and bills. Now, if you are doing what we call restructuring, it reflects a debt distress or debt stress, what we are calling refinancing, and that figure keeps growing every time in the budget, meaning there are bonds that have matured, but we are not able to pay them. So you roll them over. But also when you look at the figures, you are going to be borrowing to pay the others. Now people begin to say, could there be a situation where government will fail to pay me? And we are beginning to see that because we have been comparing the interest rates on short-term bonds, which is 2 years, 3 years, compared with the long-term 10 years and 15 years and above. You are beginning to see them close to each other in terms of return, that people are now preferring short-term bonds, 2 years, 3 years. It's a sign of people getting worried to say, let me not lock myself into a long-term bond because I don't know the future looking like, what the future would be looking like. That's not a good sign for any economy, and in economics we use that behavior as signaling a slowdown in economic growth. So you don't want to get to a level where government is looking for money to sell its bond through a bond, and the public is hesitant on whether they will actually get paid, because that will store services. But you don't blame the public. You just need to make sure the government borrowing is speaking to growth, because the economy must be the one to secure the government bond repayments. All
right. Your parting shot as we come to the end of this discussion, Dr. Fred Muhumuza.
I think we have discussed a lot at the macro level, at the national government level, and all sorts of things. I want to end by saying, you Ugandans, each one of you look at your own space. When a boat is collapsing and capsizing, each one of you is given a lifeboat. So a life jacket. What is your life jacket? How are you going to manage your own self? Don't get excited and spend your little money on the assumption that election money is coming. And if you're in elections, don't just spend on the assumption that I'll go to parliament and recover my money and borrow excessively. So before you borrow, think what are the options, including a very important option of saying, can't I live without this? So manage your own life, manage yourself. We are going to try and do our best, make sure the ship continues to move, or at least continues to sail. Sometimes the ship may not move to the shore, but at least it's not sinking. But you who is on the ship, how are you managing your personal life? Match in as much as possible your incomes and your spendings. There is tomorrow, and we want to be with you tomorrow. Chan is here today, AFCON is coming, but there's also World Cup. But there's many other things that really you need to be alive to experience. There might be that sickness. For now, you may have to handle it yourself. So save some money. Don't spend money because it is there. I think that for me is a parting shot that at bottom line, you as an individual owe it to yourself.
With that, we come to the end of Spectrum. I must thank you, Dr. Fred Muhumuza, for sparing your time to actually speak to Ugandans about this very crucial issue, and you, dear listener, for tuning in and contributing to this discussion. Tomorrow, same time, another topic will be on air. But from me and Dr. Fred Muhumuza, we wish you a good evening. But stay tuned, Radio 1, FM 90. The news in English with Miss Josephine Dagano is coming up. Thereafter, we'll have the Soul Train with BB Jr.